Welcome to Baby Boomer Tales. You can find us at babyboomertales.com. Once you've arrived at our webpage, there are links to our Facebook page, links to places you can listen to our podcast. You can find our Boomers General Store there, where you can buy Baby Boomer merchandise. Today's episode is titled The Decade of the 50s. I was born in 1950, right at the height of the baby boomer explosion. In 1950, on January 17th, the Great Brinks robbery happened, where 11 thieves stole more than $2 million from an armored car in Boston, Massachusetts. February 15th, Walt Disney releases the movie Cinderella. It is their first big picture since Bambi in 1942, and that was because of World War II. When World War II started, all Disney productions, except for some documentaries and information, ceased, and then in 1950 they resumed regular movies. June 27th, President Truman orders troops to South Korea. 2 days earlier than that, North Korea invaded South Korea. September 7th, the TV show Truth or Consequences debuts. Remember, Bob Barker used to be a host of that later on. It was a radio show before it went to television. October 2nd, 1950, Peanuts, the comic strip, was first published by Charles Schulz. Snoopy, the Red Baron, Woodstock. Notable births of 1950, Stevie Wonder, May 13th, 1950. A notable death, Black Elk. He died August 19th, 1950. He was a Lakota Sioux medicine man. He took part in the Battle of the Little Bighorn. I remember there was a book, Black Elk Speaks, back in the day. 1951, February 27th. The 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified. This limited the president to 2 terms. April 11th, President Truman relieves General Douglas MacArthur of command of the Far East. Earlier in 1950, MacArthur threatened to nuke North Korea because of the Korean conflict. July 13th, the Great Flood of 1951. Northeast Kansas, greatest flood damage to date in the Midwest U.S. They still talk about it here in Kansas City, how it killed all these cattle down in the stockyards. It was a major disaster. That's a fact. October 3rd, the shot heard around the world. Bobby Thompson's home run lifts the New York Giants over the Brooklyn Dodgers to win the National League pennant after being down 14 games. October 15th, I Love Lucy, their TV debut on CBS. Notable birth of 1951, Sally Ride, first American woman astronaut, May 26, 1951. Notable death, Shoeless Joe Jackson, December 5, 1951. Say it ain't so, Joe, the Black Sox scandal. 1952, November 4th, Dwight D. Eisenhower defeats Adlai Stevenson. He was the governor of Illinois for the presidency. December 14th, 1952, first successful separation of Siamese twins at Mount Sinai Hospital in Cleveland. Notable birth in 1952, Bob Costas, the sportscaster, March 22nd, 1952. Notable death, Curly Howard of the Three Stooges, January 18th, 1952. January 7th, 1953. President Truman announces U.S. developed the hydrogen bomb. This changed everything. January 19th. 68% of all the TV sets in the U.S. were turned on to I Love Lucy, as Lucy gave birth. June 30th, 1953. First Chevy Corvette is built in Flint, Michigan. July 27th. The Korean War ends. October 29th. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury is published. I don't want to start hearing about all the books being burnt. You do hear a little bit about that now. Notable birth, Tim Allen, January 13th, 1953. Notable death in 53, Hank Williams, January 1st, 1953. Your Cheating Heart. 1954, January 21st. First nuclear-powered sub, the USS Nautilus, is launched. April 1st, President Eisenhower authorizes the creation of the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. July 19th, Elvis Presley's first single, That's All Right, is released by Sun Records. December 23rd, first successful kidney transplant in Boston. It was done on identical twin brothers. 1954 notable birth. On January 14th, 1954, Condoleezza Rice. She's Secretary of State between 2005 and 2009. Notable death in 54, Machine Gun Kelly. Died January 17th, 54. 1955, April 15th, Ray Kroc opens the first McDonald's in Des Plaines, Illinois. Now this surprised me a little that as I looked this up, Burger King and Jack in the Box already had restaurants going. Amazing. July 17th, 1955. Disneyland opens in Anaheim, California. September 30th, James Dean, age 24, killed. He crashed his Porsche in California. October 3rd, Mickey Mouse Club airs on ABC for the first time. December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks is arrested for refusing to surrender her seat on a bus to a white person in Montgomery, Alabama. 1955 notable birth, Steve Jobs, January 24th, 1955. Notable death that year, Albert Einstein, April 18th, 1955. 1956, April 19th. Actress Grace Kelly marries Rainier III, Prince of Monaco. June 8th. This is pretty important. Historic day right here. General Electric introduces the first snooze alarm clock. Thanks, GE. June 29th. President Dwight D. Eisenhower signs the Federal Aid Highway Act. This created the interstate highway system. June 30th, 1956. A TWA Lockheed Constellation and a United Airlines DC-7 collide mid-air over the Grand Canyon. It killed all 128 people. It's the deadliest civil aviation disaster to this date. It led to sweeping changes in regulation and air traffic control. July 16th, 1956. Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, their last big tent show happened, and they announced they'd only be doing circuses and big arenas after that. October 8th, 1956, New York Yankee pitcher Don Larson pitches the only perfect game in World Series history. It was against the Brooklyn Dodgers. 1956 notable birth, Joe Montana, June 11th, 1956. Notable death that year, Connie Mack, the Philadelphia Athletics ageless ancient coach and manager. February 8th, 1956, he died. 1957, March 26th. 22-year-old Elvis Presley buys Graceland for $100,000. May 3rd, 1957. Brooklyn Dodgers owner Walter O'Malley agrees to move the team to Los Angeles, California. October 21st, 1957. U.S. military sustains first combat fatality in Vietnam. 2 years later, the first Americans were killed in Vietnam. But this guy was in the U.S. military, and he was a fatality October 21st, 57. Notable birth in 1957. LeVar Burton, February 16th, 1957. Notable death, Laura Ingalls Wilder, February 10th, 1957. 1958, June 15th. The first Pizza Hut restaurant opens in Wichita, Kansas. July 1st, 1958. The hula hoop hits the scene. You ever try to do one of those suckers? Man, those are hard. Notable birth in 1958, Michael Jackson, August 29th, 1958. Notable death, baseball player Mel Lott, November 21st, 1958. 1959, January 3rd. Alaska becomes the 49th state. January 7th, 1959. The United States recognizes the new Cuban government of Fidel Castro. Wouldn't you know it? February 3rd, 1959. A chartered plane with Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper crashes in Iowa. The day the music died. And August 21st, 1959, let's end this decade with a boom. Hawaii becomes the 50th state. Aloha. Notable birth that year, Jim Nance, born May 17th, 1959. I believe he's one of the number one football commentators out there for television. Notable death, Lou Costello, March 3rd, 1959. Remember Abbott and Costello? Some of the hairdos for ladies in the 1950s. First one was the poodle clip or the curly bob. Lucille Ball wore that. The Italian haircut, the soft bob, the bouffant, the short bangs. Mamie Eisenhower showed those off. The pixie cut, which Audrey Hepburn had. The side part, the page boy. The horsetail that turned into the ponytail. The Hollywood pin-up, the chungnon, the French twist, the Betty Page, and the updo. Some of the great inventions of the 1950s are as follows. 1950, the first credit card was introduced. That was a Diners Club. 1951, super glue was invented. Power steering was invented. The videotape recorder, not to be mistaken with the video cassette recorder. This was just videotape that you could record. 1952, Mr. Potato Head. The first patent for barcodes. First diet soft drink was sold. Can anybody tell me what that was? A bunch of you are probably thinking Tab. No, it was a soda pop called No-Cal. 1953, radial tires were introduced. The black box for flight recorders was introduced. Texas Instrument invented the transistor radio. 1954, the pill was invented. You know the pill? Teflon pans were produced for the first time. 1955, optic fiber was invented. We call it fiber optics now. 1956, the first computer hard disk was used. Hovercraft were invented. I thought we'd have flying cars by now. Liquid paper was invented. It was called Mistake Out. 1957, Fortran computer language was introduced. So you all thought DOS was the first one. Fortran was the first one. DOS didn't come around until 1981. 1958, first computer modem was invented. Lasers were invented. So Buck Rogers was way ahead of his time, apparently. 1959, the internal pacemaker was introduced. Barbie hit the scene, and the microchip, clear back in 1959, was invented. The microchip. Well, I hope you had a good time back in the 1950s. I know I did. I'm looking for some girl with a page boy haircut, that's a fact. Always be kind. You'll be very, very happy with yourself and others if you strive kindness first. I'll be back next Wednesday. Peace out.